Hey, what's up guys? In today's video, we will be discussing one of the most tedious grinds in Destiny 2, but something that is essential if you want to have good builds to run high level content. In today's video, we will review all the best ways to get high stat armor, so whether you are a new player, returning player, or even a solo player, this guy will have you covered. So stick around, enjoy the video, and if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, and subscribe. To jump straight into it, there was a thread on Reddit that asked the question, what is something that newer players should know about Destiny 2 when first jumping in? And a lot of the responses said the same thing. It is a grind. D2 can sometimes feel like a part-time job if you take the game seriously, but on the other hand, it fulfills the shoot and loot model. But it's worth the grind. So to newer players, know that D2 will be a grind, and to my veterans, I'll show you some new ways to gain high stat armor that may even surprise you. So before we go into how to gain high stat armor, we need to discuss what is high stat armor and how the stats work, and the sources you should be farming to gain that high stat armor. Now, high stat armor is any piece of legendary armor with a stat of 60 or more, and legendary armor can roll with a stat of 40 all the way up to 68. So the possibilities are endless and they can vary very dramatically. You can get very good armor or you can get armor that sucks completely. We have mobility that contributes to your overall jump height and your dodge refresh on a hunter. We have resilience, which is your damage reduction scalar, and at tier 10 resilience we do get a 40% damage reduction. This also determines the cooldown for your barricades as a titan. For recovery, this stat is tied to your rift cooldown for a warlock and how fast you regain your health outside of combat. Next, we have discipline, which determines your grenade cooldown, and this varies on the type of grenade you use in the updated 3.0 subclasses. Now we have intellect, which is tied to your super cooldown, and lastly we have strength, which is tied to your melee ability cooldowns. Now all the stats individually can roll with a stat ranging from 2 to 30, but these stats don't have to be random, and the game groups these stats into two categories. The first category is mobility, resilience, and recovery, and I call this the upper stat. And the second category is discipline, intellect, and strength, which I call, you can pretty much guess it, the lower stat. Now when we get a 60 total stat armor, the game will distribute these stats into two pools accordingly, 30 into the upper stats and then 30 into the lower stats. Now I mentioned earlier that the game just evenly distributes these stats if you don't specifically target the ones you want. And the way to specifically target the ones you do want is by using ghost mods. So when the game gives me those 30 stat points to put inside of my lower tier, because I am going to be using discipline armor, the next high stat armor I will get will gain 10 points automatically into discipline, and I will have a high chance of getting the rest of the 20 points allocated to the lower tier. Now you know how stats work and how to specifically target stats while farming. If you are a newer player or a returning player getting ready for Lightfall, or even a solo player getting ready for Lightfall, let's discuss some of the best ways to gain high stat armor. First, the easiest way to gain high stat armor is by getting prime engrams. Now every day you gain prime engrams by defeating enemies and completing activities. The way this works is believed to be a measure of total enemy kills over time, so each enemy gives you a different amount of points depending on the type of enemy they are, and once you reach the threshold you gain a prime engram. And prime engrams have just over a 50% chance to drop high stat armor. So just by playing the game, you have one way to gain high stat armor. Now another easy way to gain high stat armor would be by completing 8 bounties for different vendors, which grant you an additional powerful reward. So those vendors, which include Gambit vendors, Crucible vendors, Vanguard vendors. So by just completing those activities and picking up those 8 bounties, which you are going to be doing anyways, and getting those kills in those activities will grant you 2 ways to gain high stat armor by just playing the game and completing bounties. Now if you're a Crucible player, then there are 2 great ways to gain high stat armor, which will be Trials and Iron Banner, because you can specifically focus armor that has a high chance to be a high stat armor roll. So take advantage of the freelance playlists when those activities are available, because the pinnacle rewards they give you have given me some of the best armor I've gotten across my entire Destiny 2 career, so to speak. Another cheap and inexpensive way of getting high stat armor that does not require much time is the seasonal pass. I didn't even realize that the armor on the season pass was that good until I realized that I didn't need a chest piece on my hunter, and I decided to pick up the chest piece from the seasonal pass, and that armor was really good and helped complete my build. So please don't overlook it. Now all the sources I've just given you are some of the easiest way to gain high stat armor, but they are not the most rewarding or consistent way to get them. In the next half of the video, I will tell you the best ways to gain high stat armor, which are the most rewarding, but they are harder and they require more of a grind and commitment. First up, we have the best way by far, and I was just told about it, and this is the most consistent way that gives me high stat armor. That would be the seasonal vendor from Season of the Risen, the War Table. Now the reason why this is the best high stat armor farm is because you can specifically choose which armor piece you need, and it only costs 4 Risen Umbral energy. Yes, 4 Risen Umbral energy. That's pretty cheap. To begin farming high stat armor here, you need to unlock the perk Armor the Clothing Clearance and at the war table with Insight. And you gain Insight by completing seasonal challenges for Season of the Risen. Now once you have this unlocked, you can now purchase armor pieces and you will use a combination of Umbral Engrams, Legendary Shards, and Risen Umbral energy. Now, Risen Umbral energy will now only drop from Psyops Battlegrounds unless you have acquired Umbral energy requisition, which gives you the ability to gain Risen Umbral energy from doing other activities. But farming this activity, then focusing your armor, you can gain a lot of spiky stats. Now, this is the only farm that will require a lot of grinding, and that's the only farm I will give you guys today that's going to require a lot of grinding. And this one is going to be time consuming just to gain all that Risen Umbral energy. Now, another way to gain high stat armor that you cannot specifically choose which armor you will get will be the Empire Hunt. If you have access to Beyond Light and you grinded it out and acquired the European Gear 3 upgrade, I don't have this upgrade because I didn't play during this season, but a lot of my trusted friends who do have trip 100 builds have told me that this is a great farm to use to gain high stat armor roll. And this is going to be one of the few ways of just completing one mission per week that's going to grant you high stat armor roll, and I'll show you guys what I mean by that at the end of the video. To move on to the next video on the list, we have another seasonal vendor to talk to, and that will be the vendor from Season of the Haunted. Now, if you visit the Crown of Sorrow over in the helm and pick up a perk called Haunted Armor Focusing, which requires a Figment of Darkness, and you obtain this by completing seasonal challenges, of course, you can then begin to focus armor in the vendor. But I don't like this method because you need opulent umbral energy, and the only way to get this is by completing containment activities, which nobody does, and you can hardly find groups that are running that activity consistently to gain you all the umbral energy you need to focus those armor. So the best method I have found in this season is by doing one severe activity per character per week, which does reward one high stat armor piece, and that ties into the other two methods of gaining high stat armor in this video. If you have access to the Witch Queen campaign, then the replayable missions, which rewards you with one high stat piece of armor per week, is a great mission to do once per week on each individual character to give yourself one high stat piece of armor. Now, to gain access to this, you need to upgrade Finch in the Throne World, and this will be a grind in of itself. Bounties, patrols, and legend lost sectors is what I use to level up Finch, and I know it's a grind, but trust me, gaining access to those replayable missions is worth it. Now, if you are able to get a fire team together to do the higher levels of this activity, then this is worth it, as the higher the difficulty, the higher your chance of getting high stat roll armor is. Now, alongside the replayable missions is Wellspring, which does have 2 difficulties, and when you complete it once per character per week, then you have the ability to gain 1 piece of high stat armor. Now, the way I like to farm high stat armor is by first sticking to one character and then spending an hour completing all the activities I just listed above. So I'm able to get 1 piece of armor per week by doing those activities once. The activities I mentioned before, which does grant you high stat armor, will be the Severe mission once per week, an Empire Hunt once per week, the Wellspring once per week, and the replayable campaign mission from Witch Queen once per week. So now you have 4 methods to gain you high stat pieces of armor by not really doing anything other than completing that mission once per week. And then once you combine that with Prime Engrams, you now have a 5th method of gaining high stat armor, because while doing those activities, you are going to be completing them and gaining kills, which ties into your Prime Engrams. And then once you have the time, once you completed all those missions on the character you want to gain your high stat armor on, you're pretty much set for the week. And then once you have time to start grinding the game, that's when you decide to hop into Psyops Battlegrounds, so you can even out your stats and specifically focus the high stat piece of armor you do need. And that's how I was able to gain trip 100s on all my characters, depending on what subclass I want to use and depending if I need those mods. If I don't need any seasonal mods to Sun Champions, I can consistently run trip 100s on all my characters. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and let me know if I missed out anything in the comments. See you guys next week.